Hey fans, what's up? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Yud Aleph of Masechta Shabbis, Daf 111. Some highlights of the Daf: making yourself unable to have children. Is that allowed? Like permanently. Okay. Sipping vinegar to help your teeth. Is that allowed on Shabbos? Okay. And then Kesher Shel Kayamas. Long-term knots that are not intended to go out. Friends, let's get started. One, Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom by the 2 dots. Liarkona train b'shicha umi aker. We said that for jaundice, you're gonna basically use 2 of these ingredients that we mentioned yesterday, and you mix them together with beer, and then so that might help your jaundice, but one of the side effects is that you will be unable to have children, or at least you run the risk. Umishari, now 1 second. Is that allowed? Are you allowed to do that? Would you be allowed to drink this drink that, though it may help your jaundice, it will make you unable to have children? Interesting. V'atana, we learn in a brisa, minayin l'seirus ba'adam shehu aser. How do we know that it is forbidden to castrate a man? So it says in the context of behemoths that a behema who is castrated, you can't bring as a korban, and it's also saying and don't do it. Don't castrate any animals. And then the limud is bachim lo seyasu divrei Reb Chanina. That says Reb Chanina that you're also not allowed to castrate human beings. You also can't castrate yourselves. So we see that you are not allowed to castrate a person. And therefore, if this koshel ikrim may be helpful for your jaundice, but then you're not going to be able to have children anymore, well, that's essentially castration, or the equivalent of it, or the outcome is the same, that you'll be unable to have children, and that would not be allowed. But the Gemara answer is, yeah, but hane mile heicha dukami chaven hacha me'atzmohu. So the Gemara answers, yeah, but there's a difference. Meaning, when the Torah is saying not to castrate a person, that means deliberately. Do not deliberately make a person unable to have children. However, in this situation where you're not deliberately making this person unable to have children, right, he's drinking this drink to help treat his jaundice. And then as a side effect, what may happen is that he will be unable to have children. But that's not what he's doing milchatchila. Milchatchila is trying to treat his jaundice. And if he now becomes unable to have children memela, so then that might be acceptable. The Amr Rabbi Yechanan, as Rabbi Yechanan says, Harotza she'isaris tarnagol. What do you do if you want to castrate a rooster? You're not allowed to mamish castrate the rooster, as we learned. You're not allowed to castrate animals. What you can do is yitol karbaltol mistaris me'ela. What you can do is, it's good to know, friends, it's good to know. If you want to castrate a chicken in a halachic way, you can remove its carbalto. What's its carbalto? I think that's its crown thing. Like I think roosters have like that red thing on their head. So if you remove that, then he will be very self-conscious, and he will be unwilling to show himself to the hens. And Mimela, there aren't going to be any little chicks from that guy, because he's too self-conscious to approach any of the hens without his red thing on his head. So what do we see? So we see that there are ways to do castration memela. So while you wouldn't be able to castrate the rooster, you would be able to remove his crown thing, and then memela, he's not gonna produce any more little chickens. So we see the same thing should apply over here. If he's using this drink to treat his jaundice, and as a side effect, what might happen is he won't be able to have children, that could be acceptable. However, not so. Rav Ashi says, yeah, but it's different. Don't compare drinking a kos ikrin to removing the crown from a rooster. Because when it comes to removing a crown from a rooster, he's still able to fertilize an egg. He's still able to make little chickens. The difference is he's self-conscious. You remove his crown, he's self-conscious, and therefore he's not going to go to the hens. Theoretically, if he did go to the hens, he could fertilize eggs. So that's why that's permitted, because you're not actually doing anything physically to the rooster to make him unable to have children. However, drinking a kos ikrin will physically make you unable to have children, and that is a problem even if that's not the main intention. The main intention is to treat the jaundice. But even if as a side effect it will mean that you will be physically unable to have children, that will be a problem. So the Gemara answers Ela B'saris. Okay, so the Gemara says, you know what? It's talking about somebody who's already castrated, somebody who's already unable to have children. He's already unable to have... What's going on? Some little guy is shrieking. Alright. What are you going to do? Well, in any event, sorry for that. What were we talking about again? Right. Castrated peoples. So it's talking about somebody who's already unable to have children. So if he drinks this kos ikrin, so then, what's the big deal? So you have a guy, he's unable to have children, he also has jaundice, so he can drink this kos ikrin, it'll help his jaundice, and then there's this side effect that he also won't be able to have children, he can't have children anyways, so therefore it's acceptable. But if it was somebody who is able to have children, he wouldn't be able to drink this kos ikrin, because then it would essentially be a form of castration. Fine. But didn't Reb Chia bar Abba say the name Reb Yochanan? Reb Yochanan HaKol Modim, that everyone agrees. B'mechametz achar mechametz shehu chayav. Shenemar lo seyafe chametz, lo seyase chametz. Says Reb Chia bar Abba, the name Reb Yochanan, that everyone agrees that when it comes to mechametz achar mechametz, friends, what's mechametz achar mechametz? It's a halacha by menachos, by flour offerings. The flour offerings are not able to be made chametz, right? I believe that there's only 2 instances, if I'm not mistaken, in the Beis HaMikdash where there are chametz in the offerings. That is the Shtei Alechem offering on Shavuos, as well as one of the 4 types of chalas in a korban toda. Otherwise, there's no chametz in the Beis HaMikdash. So now, what happens if, like, in one step of preparing the korban mincha, the flour becomes chametz, so it's already chametz. So we're saying do not do the next step in preparation of the mincha, and if you do the next step in the preparation of the mincha, once it's already been chametz, and you do another step where you're going to be, it's a problem for each additional step. Meaning, even though it's already chametz, you still can't say, well, it's already chametz, I'm going to keep on going anyways. No, each individual step in the mincha, korban mincha process, if it becomes chametz, that is a problem, and the fact that it's already chametz doesn't make it okay to do, right? So everybody agrees that mechametz achar mechametz, that if you do a step in the preparation of a mincha and the korban and this flour offering is already chametz, right? It's still going to be a problem. Shehu chayav, they're going to be chayav shneimar, as the pasuk says, lo se'afeh chametz, do not bake a korban mincha chametz. Lo se'asa chametz, and another pasuk says, do not make it chametz. So obviously, do not make a korban mincha chametz includes all of the processes, including baking. So why do we need a pasuk to say specifically don't bake a korban mincha when it is chametz? So rather to teach us that each individual step, if you do it as when it's chametz, is going to be a problem. You're going to be chayiv for that, right? Okay, fine. And then continues that statement of Reb Chia bar Abba in the name of Reb Yochanan, and b'misares, achar misares shehu chayav. And also, if you castrate, even after already being castrated, well then, you are chayav. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, by korbanis. It says, umauch v'chasus v'nasuk v'charus. Okay, those are all different stages of, castration. And so, mauch v'chatus is kind of like if the testicles are somehow crushed. And vinasuk v'charus means if they're somehow detached. So now, natuk is more detached than karus. Okay, karus is like the testicles are a little bit detached, and natuk is like more detached. Okay, so now here's the thing. So the Gemara says, Im al karus chayav, al nasuk lo kol shekain. Well, if you're going to be chayav even for karus, which is like that the testicles are a little bit like detached, well then certainly if you do karus, natuk, which is a lot of it attached, you're going to be chayav. So why not just say karus, and that we know that if you're chayav for detaching the testicles of an animal a little bit, well then certainly you're going to be chayav for detaching them a lot of it. So ela lahavi nosek achar kores shu chayav. Rather, what it's to say is that even if you have a fellow and he detaches the testicles of an animal a little bit, and then, so it's already considered sarus, right? It's already considered castrated. But then afterwards he continues and does it more, a lot of it, so then he's still going to be chayav a second time, right? Misaris achar misaris, castrating after it's already considered technically castrated. So Nusa will say the same thing over here, right? Right, so lahavi noseg achar kores shehu chayav. Exactly. So we'll say the same thing over here. So even if you have this guy who is already unable to have children, that doesn't mean that he's now allowed to drink this kos ikrin after the fact. It would be considered misaris achar misaris, and we know that that's not allowed. No. So how would a fellow be able to drink a kos ikrin to treat his jaundice if, as a side effect, it will make him unable to have children? So ve'ela bizakin. Okay, so the Gemara wants to say, rather it's talking about an older gentleman who's unable to have children anymore anyways. And because he's unable to have children anyways, so then drinking this kos ikrin, what's the difference? He's unable to have children anyways. It's like, just like not even like physically possible, I guess. Okay. V'am Rabbi Yochanan, heinen echzuna l'narosai. Oh. So Rabbi Yochanan apparently Masechta Gittin is talking about there's certain herbs that you can consume, and that can bring back the sexual urge, the sexual desire. So Rabbi Yochanan says that he consumed these urges and he mamish became like a younger man again, and he became sexually excited, I guess. So we see that it's possible even for and I guess sexually able, I guess. So we see that it's possible that even when you are older, there are different medicines that you can take and you can have children. So don't drink this kos ikrin if it's going to make you unable to have children, even if you're older. Ela bi'isha. Oh, okay, fine. So rather it's talking about a woman. Why? What does that have to do with a woman? Well, if you assume that the mitzvah of having children, the mitzvah of pru'uravu, only applies to men, that the mitzvah is only on men because it says pru'uravu meluas arz v'chivshua, and as Rashi points out, who is the way to conquer? It's like a man thing to conquer. And it says to conquer the land. So therefore the mitzvah of pru'uravu is only for men. So if you say that the mitzvah of pru'uravu is only for men, well then, if a woman has jaundice and she drinks a kos ikrin, and as a side effect she'll be unable to have children, well that's not necessarily usur, because she doesn't have an obligation to have children anyways. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka da Amar al Shneim hu Omer. Yeah, but what about the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka? Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says that the chiyuv of having children is on both the men and the women. So then how can women drink kos ikrin? Right, as it says, right, as the pasuk says, right, Vayivarech osam Elokim vayomer lahem pru'uravu, that God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, have children. So what can you say? So who's drinking this kos shel ikrin? Who's allowed to drink this kos shel ikrin? Well, bizkena inami ba'akara. Well, it could be talking about a woman who is older. I guess a woman who's older, even these magical herbs that Rabbi Yochanan consumed, they would not work for women, I guess. So elder women who do not have magic herbs can drink this kos shel ikrin for their jaundice. Or else, if a woman is barren, I guess that there was no, I guess it's different than misaris achar misaris, and it wouldn't necessarily be the same issue, and she would be able to drink this kos shel ikrin. Okay. Friends, moving on. New Mishnah. Achoshesh b'shinov. Somebody who's got a toothache. Lo yigamei abaynas achometz. Okay, so if he has a toothache, he cannot sip vinegar to fix his toothache. Alright? But He can dip, but he could like dip things into vinegar and eat that. So like if he wants, he can take his bread, dip it in vinegar, eat the bread, then it's okay. Vim nisrape. And memela, if the vinegar that he's consuming by way of the bread or whatever he's dipping into vinegar, if that vinegar helps out his toothache, so that's okay, right? Because as we saw, what was it in the previous Mishnah? That person can eat anything or drink anything for refuah as long as it's a regular food. So over here, if he's dipping his bread into his vinegar, and then memela, the vinegar is going to work to fix his toothache, so then that would be acceptable, because it's not obvious that he's doing it for refuah. Fine. If a person's loins are bothering him, lo yisoch bain yain v'chometz, do not rub wine and vinegar on his loins, because that would be obvious that you are doing that lirefua, to heal yourself. Aval sachu es hashemen. However, he can anoint oil on his loins, and that will be allowed. That would be allowed, because I guess people anoint themselves with oil in general, and therefore it's not obvious that you're doing it lirefua. V'lo shemen vered. However, don't use rose oil, because people don't use, rose oil is very expensive. Most people don't usually use rose oil, so the question is, why are you anointing yourself with rose oil? Oh, it must be that you are feeling discomfort, and it's going to be like a refuah. It'll be obvious that you're doing it for refuah. However, b'nei melachim sachin shemen vered amakosein shekin darkan lasuch bechol. However, the children of kings, the princes, they would be allowed to apply they would be allowed to apply rose oil to their wounds on Shabbos, because they use rose oil during the week anyways, so it's not really a big chiddush, and that would be acceptable. Reb Shimon Omer, Kol Yisrael b'nei milachim heim. Reb Shimon says, but lemaise, all Yidden are the children of kings, and therefore, if children of kings are allowed to use rose oil, well then all Yidden can use rose oil. Says the Gemara, Rami le Rav Acha Aricha, to Rav Acha bar Papa, Rabbi Abo. Very interesting. So Rav Acha bar Aricha, who by the way is Rav Acha bar Papa, so he asked Rabbi Abo, okay, what did he ask? Tanan, we learn in the Mishnah, Hachoshesh b'shinav, somebody who his teeth are bothering him, lo yigameh b'enes hachometz, so he shouldn't sip vinegar in order to fix his toothache. Lememar the chometz ma'ile l'shinayim. Well, is that to say that vinegar is good for your teeth? But we have a pasuk in Mishlei, I believe, Mishlei, that says, Kachometz l'shinayim v'che'ashen la'inayim. That the pasuk in Mishlei says that a messenger who is lazy, so he is to his sender a big pain, like vinegar for your teeth and like smoke for your eyes. So clearly, vinegar for your teeth is not a good thing. So lokasha abikiyua de peri ha bichala. So it depends. If it's just unripe fruit and the juice is very acidic and vinegar-like, well, if that's bad for your teeth, and that is what the pasuk is talking about. However, if it's real vinegar, it's good for your teeth, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. V'bay Seymour, if you want, I will say, ha v'ha bichala. No, both the pasuk and our Mishnah are talking about vinegar. Ha di'ika maka, ha dileka maka. But it depends if you actually have a wound or not. Ika maka mase leka maka marpe. If you have a toothache, if you have a wound, if you have a toothache, so then the vinegar is going to help. It's going to help your toothache. If you don't have a toothache and you're just consuming lots of vinegar, yeah, it's true. Vinegar isn't exactly the best thing for your teeth, and it'll weaken them. It'll loosen them. Because the Rashi says it'll affect your gums negatively, and then your teeth are going to kind of spread out and be looser. Okay? Says the Gemara, Lo yigameh b'enes hachometz. Okay, so do not sip vinegar to address your toothache. Ve'al ta'anya. But one second, friends, we have a brisa. What does the brisa say? The brisa says, Lo yigameh ufolet, aval megameh uvoleya. So we have a brisa that says that it's actually not so pashit. Meaning our Mishnah said blanketly, do not sip vinegar for your teeth on Shabbos. Now, apparently it actually depends, right? That we have a brisa in Beitza that says, do not sip and spit out, because if you spit it out, then it's obvious that you're just trying to rinse your teeth with vinegar because you have a toothache. But you'd be allowed to swallow the vinegar. So why is our Mishnah sort of blanketly saying, do not sip vinegar to heal your teeth on Shabbos? It's not that simple. It depends. You would be allowed to sip vinegar if you're going to swallow it. So why is the Mishnah simply saying don't sip vinegar at all if you have a toothache? So Amar Abaye, Kitnanami masnisin megamea ufolet. So Abaye says, yeah, when our Mishnah is saying that you're not allowed to sip vinegar, it means you're not allowed to sip vinegar and spit it out. Sure, if you want to swallow it, that's fine, just like the Brisa and Beitza says. Tanan, we learn, ufolet Tanan. Rava Amar, said Rava, Afilu temu megamea uvolea. So Rava says, no, you can even say that our Mishnah is talking about sipping and swallowing. Well, if he's sipping and swallowing, then how come our Mishnah says that he's not allowed to do it? So kan lifnei tibul, kan la'achar tibul, it depends. Apparently, the minhag back then was that they would always dip things into vinegar when they ate. Okay? And therefore, if you have not yet eaten, and you're sipping some vinegar and swallowing it, so it's not obvious that you're doing it because you have a toothache. People will say, oh, I see, he didn't yet eat his meal. He didn't yet dip anything in vinegar. So he's having his vinegar sort of, vinegar daily dose of vinegar. And therefore it's not obvious that it's l'refuah. However, if you already ate and you already had your dose of vinegar for the day, and now you're like sipping vinegar and swallowing it, it's like, wait, didn't you already have your vinegar? Like, why are you having that now? And therefore it will be obvious that it will be because you have a toothache. And therefore Rav is saying that even sipping vinegar and swallowing it could be a problem if it's after you already ate. But one second, let's say that what Rav is saying doesn't really work, because if you would be allowed to sip and swallow vinegar before you ate, i.e. before you dipped, so then it should be equally permitted after you ate, because we don't have things that are like, asur sometimes and mutter other times, right? Keilu, for example, harvesting on Shabbos is asur. It's never allowed to harvest on Shabbos. So here also, Keilu, if we're going to say that you're allowed to dip, that you're allowed to sip vinegar and swallow it before you ate, well then you can also sip vinegar and swallow it after you ate. We're not going to have things that are mutter sometimes and asur sometimes. Because after all, we know that Rava holds of the concept of ho'il. What does ho'il mean? Ho'il means exactly what we just said, that since. Ho'il literally means since. So since it's permitted before you eat, so it's also going to be permitted after you eat. How do we know that he says this? Ta'amar Rava. Leka midi de b'Shabbos shari v'yom kippurim asur. There is nothing that will be permitted to do on Shabbos, and yet it will be also to do on Yom Kippur. Hold the b'Shabbos shari b'Yom Tov nami shari. B'Yom Kippurim nami shari. I don't know if I said Yom Tov, I definitely meant Yom Kippurim, right? Rather we'll say that ho'il, that since something is mutter on Shabbos, it's also mutter on Yom Kippur. What is this talking about? It's talking about going to the mikveh. There's a discussion over there in Beitza that the question is, can you go to the mikveh on Yom Kippur? So let's first start with Shabbos. The question is, can a person go to the mikvah on Shabbos? Now, we know that kalim, vessels, you're not allowed to, so if you get a new cup or something, and you want to take it to the mikvah before you use it. So the question is, can you do that on Shabbos? And the answer to that question is no. You can't, because it's misakin kli. It's like you're fixing it. Before you take it to the mikvah, you can't use it. And now you're going to take it to the mikvah on Shabbos, and now you can use it. So it's like misakin, you can't do it. So how does that apply to a person, right? If you have a person, he's going to the mikvah, so then we'll say it's also misakin. Beforehand he's tameh, now he's going to mikvah, now he's tar, he's fixing himself. So that also should be a problem, right? Wrong. A person can go to the mikvah on Shabbos because, for all we know, he's just going to cool down. He's hot, he's going to cool down. And therefore that would be permitted. And since he's allowed to go just to cool down, so a person is allowed to go to the mikvah on Shabbos. Great. How does that apply to Yom Kippur? Because now anything that's asur on Shabbos is also going to be asur on Yom Kippur. So now, here's the thing about Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to just jump into water to cool down. You're not allowed to wash. Rechitza is asur on Yom Kippur. So therefore, if I'm going to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, it's obvious that the only reason why I'm going to the mikvah is not to wash, it's not to cool down, it's to fix myself. It's because I'm tamei, I want to become tahor. So it's misakin. So in that case, I should say that I'm not allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, just like I'm not allowed to bring kalim to the mikvah on Shabbos, because it's misakin, it's fixing, it's bringing it from tumah to tahara. So Rava says that no, not true. You can even go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, because we're not going to have anything that is going to be asur on Shabbos. We're not going to have anything that's going to be asur on Shabbos. No. We're not going to have anything that's going to be mutter on Shabbos, but asur on Yom Kippur. We're not going to have Yom Kippur be more strict when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos than Shabbos itself. And therefore, since you're allowed to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, a person, so if a person is also allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. Fine. So we see that Rava holds of this concept of ho'il, that since it's allowed on Shabbos, it's allowed on Yom Kippur. So here also, we're going to say that Rava is going to say that since you're allowed to consume vinegar and swallow it before you've eaten, so you'll also be allowed to do it after you've eaten, right? So the Gemara answers that's 100% correct. Hadar be Rava mehach. So the Gemara says, you know what? You're 100% right. Rava made a mistake and he retracted it. When Rava said that our Mishnah, when it says that you're not allowed to sip vinegar, can even be talking about when you're swallowing it, and it's talking about after you've eaten, it's also to swallow the vinegar, because it's obvious that it's refuah, he changed his mind. And the correct version is like we have regarding going to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, that since you're allowed to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, you're also allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. Here also, since you're allowed to sip and swallow vinegar before you've eaten, you're also allowed to sip and swallow vinegar after you've eaten. Therefore, when our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to sip vinegar, it's talking about sip and spit it out, because that would be clear that it's lirafua. The Gemara says, then the Gemara says, but 1 second, how did we decide that he changed his mind in our context, that here by us is where he changed his mind? To say that, right, to retract from what he said, that initially he wanted to say that you would be allowed to sip and swallow vinegar before you've eaten, but not after you've eaten. And now we're saying that he retracted it to be consistent with his opinion in Beitza, which is that no, we're going to say that since he's allowed to sip and swallow before he's eaten, he's also allowed to sip and swallow after he's eaten. Maybe he retracted his opinion in Beitza. Maybe that's where he retracted. And maybe he holds that even though you're allowed to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, you're not allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, no. Lo sakadaitich, don't think that. The Tanya, because we learn in the Brisa, kochayve tvilos tovin kedarkim bein b'Tisha B'Av bein b'Yom Kippur, that anybody who needs to go to the mikvah can go to the mikvah, whether on Tisha B'Av, whether it's on Yom Kippur. Both of those are days that you're not allowed to go to the mikvah, and yet you would be allowed to go to the, both of those are days that you're not allowed to do rechitza, that you're not allowed to wash, and yet, on both of those days, you'd be allowed to go to the mikvah. So we see that there's a brisa that says that you're allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur, so Rava is not going to disagree with the brisa, and therefore, he's going to amend what he says in our case, and say that since you're allowed to sip and swallow vinegar before your meal, you're also allowed to sip and swallow vinegar after your meal, and therefore when our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to sip vinegar, it means to sip and spit it out, like Abaye says, because it's obvious that it's lirafua. Fine. Moving on. Okay, so the Mishnah had said that somebody who his loins are bothering him, so he's allowed to rub oil on his loins, but not rose oil, because most people don't use rose oil, don't anoint themselves with rose oil during the week, and it would be obvious why you're using rose oil. It must be because you are feeling discomfort. To which Reb Shimon says, no, what do you mean? The Bnei Melachim are allowed to use rose oil because it's normal for them, and all Yidden are Bnei Melachim. So it's permitted for everybody. By the way, I was thinking, if all of the sons of Israel are the sons of kings, so Mistama, then all the daughters of Israel are the daughters of kings, and then that means that all the sons, that if we're all the sons of kings, and the girls are if the boys are the sons of the kings and the girls are the daughters of the king, then we're all brothers and sisters. Alright. So Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, Amar Rav, Halacha Reb Shimon. So it says Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda in the name of Rav, that the halacha is like Reb Shimon. Very nice. The halacha is like Reb Shimon, that if your loins are bothering you, you can rub rose oil into your skin to make it feel better. Okay? Because everyone is B'nai Melachim. Fine. So the name of the Rav Reb Shimon Svirle. So is that to say that Rav in general, when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, he holds like the kulas of Reb Shimon? What are the kulas of Reb Shimon? Davar Shein Miskaven is mutter, as opposed to Reb Yehuda says Davar Shein Miskaven is aser. Muktzah, right? Reb Shimon Leislei Muktzah. Reb Yehuda holds up Muktzah. Melacha Shein Tzricha Legufa, right? Reb Shimon says Pater. Reb Yehuda says Chayev. So we see that there's a number of kulas of Reb Shimon when it comes to Shabbos. Now, so are we saying that Rav is holding like Reb Shimon over here, that anybody's allowed to use rose oil? What, are we saying that Rav generally holds like Reb Shimon's kulas? Amar Rav Shimi Bar Chia Mishmei de Rav, but Rav Shimi Bar Chia says in the name of Rav, Hai misochraya din azyasa. If you have some kind of a plug to an earthenware barrel, you have some kind of earthenware barrel, and there, I don't know, maybe you have some kind of beer in it or something, and there's an opening to the barrel to, like a spout to get the beer out. So how do you plug up the spout? So you plug it up with some cloth. So now, Rav says, right, so we have Rav Shimon Bar Chia in the name of Rav. So this cloth plug that you stick into the barrel to prevent the liquid from coming out when you don't want it to come out, so also la'adoke b'yom ha'tava. It's forbidden to put it in, to stick it into the barrel on Yom Tif. How come? So the assumption is right now, well, because Davar Shein Miskaven is aser. We're assuming that when you stick the cloth into the barrel to plug up the hole, so what might happen is you might end up squeezing some liquid out of the rag, right? You have the rag, I guess some liquid gets into the rag, and when you're plugging it up, so it might squeeze out some of the liquid, maybe yes, maybe no. But in case it does happen, it will be aser. And Rav is saying, therefore, don't stick this cloth into the hole of the barrel, because you might end up squeezing out some of the liquid from the cloth. That would be a Davar Shein Miskaven. Davar Shein Miskaven is aser. That's like Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Shimon, of course, would say Davar Shein Miskaven is mutter. So the Gemara says, no, that's not a proof. Really, Rav does hold like Reb Shimon. However, Be'ahiyah afilu Reb Shimon modeh. But over there, even Reb Shimon would say that it's not allowed. Because the Abayi v'Rava damar tarvayu modu Reb Shimon b'psik reisha v'lo yamos. Because of course we know that both Abayi and Rava say that Reb Shimon admits when it comes to psik reisha that it's going to be aser. And this, when you take this cloth and you plug it into the barrel, this is no Davar Shein Miskaven. It's not maybe you'll squeeze out some liquid, maybe you won't. Of course you're going to squeeze out some liquid. It's not, it's a psik reisha v'lo yamos. It's if I cut off the head of the chicken, obviously the chicken's going to die. Here also, if I plug in the barrel, obviously I'm going to squeeze out some of the liquid. Therefore, even Reb Shimon would say that you're not allowed to plug up the barrel with this cloth. And Rav really does hold like Reb Shimon, in general, that he holds like the kulas of Reb Shimon, but here even Reb Shimon would say you're not allowed to plug up this barrel because it's a psik reisha v'lo yamos. V'amar Rav Chia bar Ashi amar Rav, but didn't Rav Chia bar Ashi say the name of Rav, halacha Reb Yehuda? Rav Chanan bar Ami amar Shmuel, halacha Reb Shimon? But one second. However, Rav Chia bar Ashi said the name of Rav, that when it comes to Davar Shein Miskaven, that Rav holds like Reb Yehuda. And Rav Chanan bar Ami says in the name of Shmuel that the halacha is like Reb Shimon. So we actually do see that when it comes to Davar Shein Miskaven, Rav holds like Reb Yehuda, who says that Davar Shein Miskaven is aser. And Shmuel holds like Reb Shimon, who says that Davar Shein Miskaven is mutter. So back to our initial question. Rav is saying, right, we have Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda in the name of Rav, that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, that anybody's allowed to use rose oil, because we're all b'nei melachim. So, are we saying that Rav always holds like Reb Shimon and his kulas when it comes to Shabbos? I mean, That can't be. I mean, we see that Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to Davar Shein Miskaven. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Shimon. V'Rav Chia bar Avin masni la below Gavre. So Rav Chia bar Avin quotes the same machlokes between Rav and Shmuel, but instead of quoting Rav Chia bar Ashi in the name of Rav and Rav Chanan bar Ami in the name of Shmuel, he just quotes them directly. Right? Rav Amar halacha Kreb Yehuda, u'Shmuel Amar halacha Kreb Shimon. Fine. Rav himself says that the halacha is like Reb Yehuda, and Shmuel says the halacha is like Reb Shimon, rather than being quoted by other people as having those opinions new. So what do we see? So we see that Rav holds like Reb Yehuda, he doesn't hold like Reb Shimon. So Ela Amar Rava, rather says, Rava, listen to this, friends. Ani v'arisha b'chabura, me and the lion of the group, right? They would have groups of students that would study Torah together, and one of them, however, was the lion of the group. Who is the lion of the group? Umanu Reb Chia bar Avin, right? So Ani v'arisha b'chabura targimna, Umanu Reb Chia bar Avin. Who was the lion of the group? Is Reb Chia bar Avin. If you remember on daf 20-something, 23 maybe, epis, I think so. Yeah. So on daf 23, so we on daf Chav Gimel, which is like 90 pages ago almost. So Rav Huna said that he would see that Rav Avin Nagara, he would always make candles and stuff. Anyway, so he said that somebody great was going to come from them, and he had Rav Idi bar Avin and Rav Chia bar Avin. And sure enough, Rava attests that Rav Chia bar Avin was the lion of the Chabura. Anyways, so we explained it. Halacha Reb Shimon v'lav mi taime. Okay. That the halacha is like Reb Shimon. That Rav is in fact saying that the halacha is like Reb Shimon. That anybody can use this rose oil. However, it's not for his reason. Reb Shimon's reasoning is, look, if it's good enough for the Bnei Melachim, it's good enough for anybody. We're not going to have these people can use the rose oil and these people can't. So Rav doesn't exactly hold like Reb Shimon for that same reason, but he does agree that you would be allowed to use rose oil. So let's see why. So my halacha Reb Shimon v'lav mitayme. What does it mean that Rav would say that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, but not for the same reason that Reb Shimon says that it's mutter to use rose water, rose oil. Ilema halacha Reb Shimon deshari v'lav mitayme. Tilu Reb Shimon savar masi, Rav savar lo masi. Well, if you're going to say that, what it means is like this: that Rav holds like Reb Shimon, that what? That you're allowed to use rose oil, but for a different reason. Reb Shimon says you're allowed to use rose oil even though it heals. Rose oil is going to heal whatever discomfort you're in. So you're allowed to use the rose oil. Rav says, yeah, I agree, you're allowed to use rose oil because rose oil is a placebo. It doesn't do anything. So that's why he says that you're allowed to use it. So yeah, tachlis, at the end of the day, Rav and Reb Shimon both agree that you'd be allowed to use rose oil. However, Reb Shimon says even though it heals, you're allowed to use it. Rav says you're allowed to use it because it doesn't heal. Okay. However, one second. But the Mishnah says that the sons of kings would use this rose oil and apply it to their wounds. Why would they apply it to their wounds? Obviously because it heals. So rose oil certainly does heal. Okay? Well, if that's the case, then Ella halacha Reb Shimon deshari v'lav mitayme. Well, then what does it mean that the halacha, that Rav says the halacha is like Reb Shimon, who says that anyone's allowed to use rose oil, but for a different reason than Reb Shimon says? What does that mean? That Reb Shimon holds that even though rose oil may not be common for regular people to use, it was for the Bnei Melachim. The Bnei Melachim use rose oil, and therefore anybody can use rose oil, even though we don't usually use rose oil. And it might be clear that why am I using rose oil, which is expensive, right? Most people don't use it, it's too expensive. I'm doing it because I'm uncomfortable, and therefore I'm using it as the refuah. Even so, Reb Shimon says it's allowed because we don't divide between these people are allowed to use it, these people aren't allowed to use it. For Rav says, sure, you're allowed to use rose oil. However, ishriach in v'ilo shriach lo v'asa derav shriach mishcha devarda. However, Rav says it depends. You can only use rose oil in a place where people normally use rose oil even during the week, and therefore it's not obvious that you're doing it l'refuah. And where Rav lived, in Surah, so I guess that's what it's saying, in Surah, but wherever it is where Rav lived, they used, it was more normal, it was more common to use rose oil, and therefore it wasn't obvious that you were using it for refuah. And therefore, that's why Rav says that you'd be allowed to use rose oil. However, if it were a place where they didn't normally use rose oil, then he would say that you would not be allowed to use rose oil. Hadran alach shmona shratzim. We'll get back to you. Perek shmona shratzim. Okay, Perek 15 of Masechta Shabbos. Ve'elu ksharim shechayavin alein. These are the knots that you are chayav a korban chatas if you tie them on Shabbos by accident. Kesher agamolin v'kesher asaponin. The knots that the camel riders tie and the knots that the sailors tie. Okay. Uchshem shu chayav al kishuron kach hu chayav al heteron. And just like you are chayav for tying these knots, you are also chayav for untying these knots. Reb Meir Omer, kol kesher sheyachol la'atiro be'achas miyadav ein chayav olav. Reb Meir says, if it's a knot that you'd be able to untie with one of your hands, just using one hand, well then, you're not going to be chayav for, I guess, at least for untying it. Probably not for tying it either. My kesher agamolin. What is this knot of the camel riders? V'kesher asapanin, and these knots of sailors. Ilema kitra dekatre bizmama, v'kitra dekatre beistrida, hakesher she'eno shel kayama, who, friends, what does this mean? So the camel riders, they would, this came up also in Bameh Behema Yotza, I believe. So the camel riders, they would take some kind of a ring and pierce it through the nose of the camel, and then that's how they would tie the leash or whatever to the camel. It was probably pretty uncomfortable for the camel, and that is why the camel would obey, I guess. But what they would do is they would put some kind of a ring through the nose of the camel, and they would hold shut that ring by tying a knot. Now that knot that they would tie on the ring was permanent. However, then when the camel rider tied like a rope to the camel to then escort it, he would tie that rope through that ring in its nose, and then he would knot that rope, but the knot connecting the rope to the ring was a knot that would, that would come out. When he wanted to untie the camel, he would just untie that knot between the rope and the ring, but the knot on the ring itself, that's, keeping the ring ringy, so that was permanent. Now the same thing would be on boats, right? At the, what was it called? The prow, I think the prow of the boat, that frontmost section of the boat, there would be a ring in the prow as well. And that ring as well, they would stick through the prow, then they would tie it shut with some kind of a knot that doesn't come out. And then when they wanted to tie the boat to the dock, so they would take a rope and tie it through that ring and knot that rope through the ring. But again, that knot is one that would come out, when they would untie the boat, so then that knot would come out. But the knot on the ring itself, that's keeping the ring shut, that was a knot that would not come out, okay? So my kesher agamalin v'kesher sapan. What knot are we referring to when we're talking about the knots of camel riders and the knots of sailors? Ilim akitra dekatra bizmama v'kitra dekatra beistrida. So if you want to say that it's talking about the knot on the rope that they would tie through the ring, i.e. the knot that comes out when they untie the camel or untie the boat, okay? So, hi kesher she'eno shekayamu. Well, that's a kesher that's not long lasting, so you shouldn't be chayav a korban chatas for that. Elekitra dizmama gufe v'istrida gufa. No, so what we're referring to as that you're chayav a korban chatas, that's a kesher shekayama, a long lasting kesher, a long lasting knot. So that is the knot on the actual ring itself, whether the ring that goes through the nose of the camel or the ring that goes through the, what was that called again? The prow of the boat. So then, those knots on the actual ring itself are not intended to ever come out, and that you will be chayav a korban chatas for. Reb Meir Omer, says Reb Meir, kol kesher chulei, any knot that is able to be undone with one hand, so it is, you're not going to be chayav for it. I assume it means either to tie it or to untie it. Bayir of achadvoy demin acha. That's what the Gaos Abach changes it to. The Gaos Abach reads it, Rav Achadvoy demin acha. So ask Rav Achadvoy, who is from a place called Acha. Aniva Rav Meir Mao, what would Rav Meir say about tying a knot? Tying a bow. Because when you tie a bow, on the one end it's tied tight, it's not loose, but on the other end you can easily undo it with one hand. So, do we say time Rav Meir mishum diyachol atiro ba'achas miyadavu va'anam yachol atiro? Do we say, well, the whole point of Reb Meir is that if you're able to undo it with one hand, well then, you're going to be potter. And a bow, you can undo with one hand by pulling one of the strings, of course. Or Dilma, or perhaps time of Reb Meir mishum dilo mihadek v'amihadek. Or maybe what his point is that a knot that is loose, and because it's loose, you're unable to do it with one hand. You're going to be potter for that, but this is tight. You might be able to easily undo the knot, but it's tied tightly. Lemaisa, take what the Gemara says. We don't know. We don't know the answer. All right. New Mishnah. Says the new Mishnah that there are knots that you're not chayav a korban chatas like you would be chayav for the kesher agamalin, for the camel riders knots and the sailors knots. There are other knots, however, that you would not be chayav a korban chatas. Okay. Now, kosher is isham miftach chaluka v'chutei svacha v'shel piskaya v'ritzuos mina v'sandal v'nodos yaim v'shem nukter shel basar. Wow, let's read that again. Kosher is isha miftach chaluka. Okay, a woman is allowed to tie the like her shirt, meaning the apparently on their women's shirts. I don't know if it's like that nowadays. Maybe some yes, some no. Let's say that. So there would be like a strap on one shoulder, and then you would tie it to the opposite shoulder, and then there would be a strap on. So let's say that was the left shoulder, you tied on the right shoulder, and then you have a strap on the right shoulder that you would tie to the left shoulder. So you'd be allowed to tie those knots, because, she's just going to untie them when she takes off the shirt. V'chutei svacha, also if there were like, some kind of strings attached to her hat, that's how she would fasten it to her head, well, that also, is not a kesher shel kayama because she's just going to take off the hat later, so that would be mutter. Piskaya, some kind of a belt that she would wear. So also, she's planning to take off the belt, so it's not a kesser shel kayama. V'ritzuos minal v'sandal, the straps of her shoes, the straps of her sandal. V'nodos yain v'shemen ukdera, v'shemen, sorry. And like, nodos, what are nodos? Like skins of wine and of oil. She'd be allowed to tie those shut. Ukdera shel basar, a pot of meat. If she would put some kind of a garment on top of it, she'd be allowed to secure that, because I guess maybe it's like a lid of sorts, so she would remove that as well. She's gonna, it's not a kesher shel kayama, she's planning to open up the pot at some point to get out the food. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yankiv Omer, koshren lifnei behema b'shvil shelo teitzei. Says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yankiv that you'd be allowed to, like, if you have like a door, let's say you have an animal in the barn or something, and you don't want the animal to come out, so you can just take a rope and close the door, like put it across the exit of the door so that the animal won't exit. That would be acceptable. Says the Gemara, Hagufa Kasha, 1 second. 1 second. This is a question. On the one hand, on the one hand you said, Yesh ksharin she'ein chayav alein kekesh hagamalin kekesh hasapanin. On the one hand you said that there are knots that you're not going to be chayav a korban chatas for them, like you would be chayav for the knot of a sailor or the knot of a camel rider. That implies, however, yeah, sure, you're not chayav a korban chatas. Chiyuva udeleka yisur ika. You're not chayav a korban chatas, but it's nonetheless pater aval aser. V'hadar tani kosher isha miftach chaluka. But then you start saying, and a woman is allowed to tie her shirt closed, even chatchila. 1 second. On the one hand, you're saying that there are things that you're not chayav a korban chatas for, implies that you're nonetheless going to be aser. And then you start, telling us things that are completely mutter. Whatever happened to the pater aval aser part? So achikam, this is what the Mishnah is saying. Yesh ksharin she'ein chayav alein kekesh agamalin u'kekesh hasapanin. There are those knots that you're not going to be chayav a korban chatas for, like you would be chayav a korban chatas for the knots of camel riders and sailors. What are examples of these things that you wouldn't be chayav a korban chatas, but you would be aser nonetheless? Umayni, what are they? Kitra dekatre bizmama v'kitra dekatre be'isterida. Those are the knots that you would, when you would tie the rope to the ring, so then whether it's the ring that's in the nose of the camel, or whether it's the ring that's in the prow of the boat, the rope that you're tying to this ring, you would tie with a knot that would come out. Maybe not immediately, but it would come out but sometimes it could take a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. So therefore it's patur aval asur. You really shouldn't tie that knot on Shabbos. But if you do, it's not like the knot on the ring itself, which is never supposed to come out. That would be a kesher shakayama. This is something that's eventually going to come out. And therefore, it's patur aval asur. Right? Chiyuva udeleka isura ika. So you're not chayav korban chatas, but it's nonetheless not allowed. V'yesh shemutarin lechatchila. But there are other knots that are 100% mutar lechatchila. Umayniu, what are they? Kosheres miftachei chaluka. For example, a woman is allowed to tie shut her clothing. Because that's just gonna, she's gonna untie it later when she takes off her shirt. Okay. That was Daf Kuf Yud Aleph. Smooth sailing, right? Right. So okay, let's just review things pretty quickly. So the Gemara started off talking about making yourself unable to have children. We say that is a problem. You're not allowed to make yourself unable to have children. And for a man, it would sound like no matter what, even if you're older, even if you are already unable to have children, because there's an issue of misaris achar misaris, castrating after already being castrated. And even when you're older, apparently there are ways to be able to have children again, even then. However, women, we say though that when the Mishnah says that you're allowed to drink a kos ikrin, which will treat jaundice, but will make a person who drinks it unable to have children, well, that would be allowed for women who are no longer able to have children, because it sounds like then, there's no chiyuv of misaris achar misaris, because that's only by castration for men, and also in terms of, there weren't any of these magic herbs to enable them to have children again. So at that point, women would be allowed to drink a kos ikrin, even if it has the side effect of not being able to have children. Okay. And then we talked about sipping vinegar to help your teeth on Shabbos. So we say that it's not allowed. Abai says, it's not allowed if you're going to spit it out, because then it's going to be obvious that it's l'refuah. But if you're going to swallow it, then it's okay. Rava says that when we say that it's not okay, that's actually talking about even if you're going to swallow it, it's not okay. And when it says it's not okay, it's after you've already eaten, because then it's obvious that you're doing it l'refuah. We then brought a question from the fact that we say that since something, i.e. going to the mikvah, is mutter on Shabbos, so it's also going to be mutter on Yom Kippur, and therefore we say the same thing over here, that since sipping vinegar is mutter before you've eaten, so it's also going to be mutter after you've eaten. So rather, what's the Mishnah talking about when it says that you're not allowed to sip vinegar? It means to sip it and spit it out. Then we got to the new parak, parak 15, parak Elu Aksharim. So then we talk about kesher shal kayama. An example of kesher shal kayama, something that would be asur, that you'd be chayav for, is the knot that you would tie in the ring of a camel or the ring of the prow of a boat. Those are knots that are never intended to come out. Knots that would be patur aval asur would be the knots that you tie into the, that you use to tie the rope to the rings. Those are, not exactly knots that would come out, every day, but they would come out eventually, so that's patur aval asur. Then you have things like, let's say, the knot that a woman ties to close her shirt. Well, that's going to come open later when she removes her shirt, so therefore that would be not a kesher shal kayama at all. That would be completely mutter. Friends, have a great day.